All right, what's up, guys? It's Kyle, also known as the Panda Man, with another episode of Unlocking Your Inner Strength. Today I have David, my good friend David Fishchuk, and he is from the West Coast, and we met through a mutual coach that we have, Wes Watson. And David was actually the first guy on Wes's call. It was early February. The first call I was on, you were the first guy I remember talking on one of Wes's Zoom calls. I was down in Florida on a vacation, and I remember you just stuck out to me because you were sharing some of your wins and all that. So, anyway, thank you for being with me, David.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah,
And little introduction, of course. My name is David Fishchuk. Also, I am on the West Coast, soon to be on the East Coast, joining you, brother. The best coast is what I like to say now.
yeah,
But yeah, it's crazy. The mutual friends that we have and the amount of networking that you can achieve if you just put your heads together, focus. Can make everything work in life. All you got to do is just network, be honest, and not try and be stingy about it, right? So the fact that you and I are talking versus a lot of different businesses and lines of work, everyone's always butting head, trying to get the upper hand on each other. But when you're truly trying to help somebody, this is where our connection comes in, right?
it's it, man. The relationships, the networking, man, and you took the action. Reached out, and so let's make it happen, man. So tell me a little bit first. Where'd you grow up? Did you grow up out there? Tell me a little bit about your family. I know you got a beautiful wife, right?
Yes, I
And
do. Yeah. And a little daughter, 2.5 years old, my little
yeah, I was
gem
just
in my life.
I see, man. I see with the stories and all that. She's beautiful. So tell us a little bit about them. Tell us where you grew up, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I am 29 years old, just turned 29 a couple months ago. And I was born and raised actually in the Seattle area. I'm in a city called Bellevue, but it was in a low income area. If anyone listening to this is from Northwest and hears Bellevue, they think rich because that's where like all the Microsoft campuses are and all those tech companies, right? But in every big city, you say LA and then you look at Skid Row or you look at like any of these cities, you'll find like a small section. So we grew up in low income housing. I was born in 94 and my family came from Ukraine, like all my aunts and uncles and everything from Ukraine in I think 92, 93. So I was born shortly after. So I have zero accent. I can technically be president. So let's go. But we grew up with my mom only, my brother, and then my grandparents, all in a low income apartment. I mean, I grew up on food stamps, low income. It's all I knew, and like all my aunts and uncles, they were all married. Most people around me outside of my neighborhood, they all were married. They all had more than enough, right? Like I never thought anything of it. And at the same time, like I do have a dad, but he's not around and I don't care. I've seen him 3 times in my life. Once when I was maybe 3 years old, first image I thought of him, I was told by my aunts and uncles and stuff like that and my cousins like he was a bad guy, but you're little, you don't think anything of it, right? So he's going to come over, I get excited. He comes through the door and I'm like running around. I don't think this is the visions I remember in my head. He's sitting on a couch. So he's right here, my mom's right here on a couch. And I'm walking from here to here to go to my mom. And he grabs me and immediately I felt something dark inside of him and I smack him. He lets go and I run to my mom. And then I hadn't seen him until my grandpa passed away. I think it was 2018 or 19. I forget the exact year. It's already 23, I saw him at my grandpa's funeral. I don't like to say bad things about people, but I'm so glad he was never in my life. Didn't ever reach out. Didn't even reach out when that side of my family saw like my success and all that when 2016, 2017 happened and I started a business. Didn't say or see anything. Never reached out. Super glad, even though I felt like there was a lack missing my whole life there. But he's sitting in the back corner and then someone pulls me aside and goes, this is the first person in my family, my grandpa, who had actually passed away. So I'd never known death before. I was just destroyed. Because I grew up, my grandma, my grandpa raised me while my mom was working multiple jobs. She was going to school to be a dental assistant and then a medical assistant and all of that. So I was raised by a mix of my aunts and uncles, my older brother who's 3 years older than me, and then my grandparents. I'm super close to my grandma to this day. She's like, she tells everyone, well, they have no filter at that age, that I am her favorite grandson. So let's go. But we're at the funeral. I'm walking by this guy multiple times. Like he looks like Kevin from The Office. Like, thank God this wasn't my father. Like, and I didn't see nothing. whatever, moved on. I didn't care. And then in end of 2019, it's like end of August 2019, August 31st, my brother passed away. He fell hiking. So it was a total accident, insane. That one was even harder. So in the span of 2 years, I lost two of the most important men in my life effectively, my grandpa and my brother. And here's the craziest thing. It really solidified to me like how strong a person can become when you deal with death like that. And the first death I had was my grandpa's. He was in the hospital. He got very sick. He was super old. And we were all there in the hospital when he passed away. But my brother, he fell like very far. So it's a whole different situation, right? Thankfully, the funeral was beautiful and stuff like that. But I believe God actually saved me from that terrible family. Growing up, a lot of times we have this victim mentality. A lot of people do. They go, why is my father not around? Why is my mom not around? Why am I dealt these circumstances in life? And while growing up, we hold that on our shoulders. But when I was at my brother's funeral, that entire side of that family that I didn't even know, because I didn't care. They're just not my family. Okay. I don't know anything about them. Most of them aren't even in this state. So who cares? That grandpa over there was like terrorizing like my mom and like mumbling weird, like bizarre gypsy things. It was a weird situation. And I kicked that dude out during the burial service and stuff. But I had one moment with my actual like dad where during the actual service, he looks at nobody. He's standing there in the back corner like usual. He comes up in front of the casket, looks at his firstborn, then he looks at me. We shake hands, and then he walks away. And we looked eye to eye. Insane. At that point, I was, I believe, 23, 24, something like that, whatever I was about 3-4 years ago now. And it was one of those experiences in my life that I felt so much closure on. Like, it made me so glad of not having that man in my life, because I'm Christian, and I believe God sheltered me from that. And one thing my mom always told me growing up was, you may not have a father on earth that loves you and cares for you, but you have a father in heaven who's always looking down on you and protecting you and guiding you. And a lot of times in life, we always pray for the things that don't really matter, right? We pray for, God, can you please like take this away from me, this pain, this suffering, this hurt? I want to have $1 million. I don't want this person in my life. Like, I hate this, I hate that. And then most people will say, screw God, screw faith, screw this, because they don't understand in the grand scheme of things what the real plan is. And whether or not you believe in God or something else, we all believe that there is something out there that guides us. I'm a big believer in the law of attraction as well. Yeah. And whatever we attract in our lives is a direct result of our thoughts and where our actions will go. So the fact is, growing up, I saw not having a father as an opportunity to be one someday and be the best man I could be. Even though I never had a business mindset, entrepreneurial mindset up until about 2015. I graduated in 2012 technically, but as I grew up with my brother, we were the only ones in our family that finished college and high school at the same time, doing a running start program in computer science. But what was very interesting is I don't know how my mom did it, and I respect her to the biggest degree. Like, she is the strongest woman I have ever known in my life. Next to my wife now, because after you see your wife give birth to your baby, that's a whole different ball game. And you're like, man, women are crazy strong. I'm standing there just like, you go, girl. But specifically because the statistics of having a child be successful in life in a single parent family household is extremely, extremely rare. You're way more likely to be incarcerated, be on drugs, be a low life, all of that, when you don't have two parents in the household, regardless of if they fight or not, because that can also breed its own toxicity. But with all that said, she somehow instilled in us the hardworking virtue to get a degree, to take advantage of, even though we don't have money coming in. Yeah, we had free lunches at school. We always had like hand-me-down clothes for my cousins, and we would have these like checks from the government that let us go get clothes and stuff before school started. But I took every advantage I possibly could. And in 2015, mid 2014, I met my wife. And it was cool because she was actually introduced to me through like a mutual friend of my family. So when I was dating my ex at the time, my mom introduced me or tried to get me away from that girl and showed me like a picture and stuff of this girl who's now my wife that she had met at a Christmas party. See, my mom and her mom had a mutual like best friend, and we just kind of like were this far apart from knowing each other, like one person removed. So we're both Ukrainian, and she actually was born in Ukraine, and she was there longer than me. But I thought it was really cool because it's one of those things is having the same culture these days, and what that really breeds is, I think, extremely beneficial. Doesn't knock anyone for not doing it. I just think it's really cool to have families that can speak in the same language. My wife can speak to my grandma in Ukrainian if she has to, you know. And my Ukrainian is extremely broken, but my grandma's the only one I talk to in it because she understands me. But I met her in 2014, and I was still working at Starbucks as a barista and finishing college. See, even back then, I was extremely disciplined because I had a chip on my shoulder and I knew that everyone was always looking down on us. I heard many times from specific aunts and uncles that they would, under their breath, slight me and my brother because my brother was extremely overweight when he was younger. And then I was just like that younger kid that just didn't have a father around, and we just didn't have anyone. And we always were like the poor ones of the family, right? So I just used that as fuel as I grew up, you know? I was like, I took it when I was a kid. I cried a lot, you know, like who doesn't when your own family like slights you, you know? But now it's very interesting what happens when people at the top laugh at those below them. When it's flipped, these people don't seem to change. They'll get jealous up or down. Doesn't matter where you go. All of this is a mindset game. It is not what are you dealt with now? It's what are you going to do with the cards that you were dealt, good or bad. Everything that we do today is a direct result of all of our wins or losses accumulated over time, right? So from the same time that we both have, I got family members hating on me. Well, I'm taking it and learning on where to improve.
Yeah, man.
So I started doing that. Like when I was 16 years old, I was a skinny fat. And I grew really, really fast. So I'm 6'4". And I had like a pear shape, like a woman's body shape. Very wide hips and like not as wide of upper body. So I always looked awkward. And then I accomplished one extremely cool thing. Have you heard of this program called P90X?
Yeah.
So a lot of my cousins at the time, a couple of them finished it. And me and my cousin, one of my closest friends and cousins now, we both like made a decision. Hey, we're going to do this. Doesn't matter. 90 days, we're going to give. Because 6 days a week, there wasn't as crazy of a strict diet, but it was strict enough where all the work you put in, you're guaranteed to lose weight if you just do 90 days of it. So we started doing it together. We keep each other accountable. Different houses. I got little dumbbells. I had those old Bowflex dumbbells I still have to this day. And that was 13 years ago. And then I got these little like bands I can put in the doorway, and I got all my workouts in. I was so dedicated to finishing it that my cousin stopped halfway because he got a really bad injury on his forearm. And I was like, you know what? No. Because most of my family members, they would always like start it and then stop, start, stop, start, stop. Like most people that you and I know who say that they're going to get fit.
Yeah.
Right? So, and this all happened while I was still doing college, and I didn't even have a car at the time. I was in college. I was working at a grocery store as a cart boy. So my mom would drop me off in the morning, and then I would come back home around like 1 p.m. And then I'd work like an evening shift at the grocery store as a cart boy, making like $8 an hour or something pathetic. And in between there, I would get my workout in beforehand, after, but it didn't matter what it was. I was determined to get it done no matter what. So like I would skip out on like a Saturday event if I knew I had work in the evening and I had to get my workout in the morning. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have to get this done. I have to prove everybody wrong. So at 17, I was the first time I actually dropped a bunch of weight. I dropped like 15 pounds, and I was looking really good. Obviously, I look back at pictures and I looked really awkward because extremely skinny upper body and still like wider hips, but I had abs, which was cool. But that was my first stepping stone into the fitness world in a discipline. And I didn't really realize it until now where I'm at this age. I look back and I go, that's where it all really began, was being disciplined enough to not make an excuse to manage college, to manage a job, no car, still got my workouts in, still did everything I could. And people these days can't do that. And they just have one job, no extra college, no nothing. They just make an excuse and they just want to goof off in their spare time. It's very interesting how that works. So anyone can do this, by the way. It's not like the only like handful of people can do it. Everyone can. But that's what separates the successful and the unsuccessful people of life. It's not a monetary thing. It's can you get knocked down a bunch of times? Can you get back up? When things switch up on you, can you adjust quickly on the fly? Or are you going to be just flowing through the wind? One bad thing happens, oh, there goes my day. It's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
But that all kind of, that development side of me brought up something in me that I really wanted to have some kind of success in the world. But I didn't really care that much. I knew I wanted to get a degree and I wanted to go to get a job with that degree somewhere in the tech field. Because I live in the Northwest, everyone does tech jobs, right? So I wanted to get a tech job. And then I met my wife and I got a really cool job working in downtown Seattle as like a phone support guy, which was $20 an hour, significantly more than I was making at Starbucks. And we met in 2014 in July. I proposed to her in January of 2015. And then by August, we got married. Real quick. So I was 21 when we got married. I met her at 20, but I got married at 21. And she was 18, like a fresh 18. And young babies, she was working like a part-time job and trying to go to college. And so when we got married, we had a decision. We were both living at our parents' house. Do we do the typical thing and get married and move out right away and barely make ends meet? Or do we try and like let her finish college first? And at the time I was thinking about, because we had just proposed. Once you propose in the January and you get married in August, it's like, what do you do between then? You just plan. But around that year, I got introduced to a network marketing company called Amway. And it opened my eyes to entrepreneurial, like what the entrepreneurial journey is. And me and my cousin, the same one I did the workouts with, me and him were obsessed with the movie Wolf of Wall Street. We wanted to be like rich at that point, and I started like really wanting to see success. And then up comes this one random guy at a Starbucks that wants me to like join this business opportunity. And this guy his goal was $6,000 a month. That was his goal. And I asked him how long he's been doing it, and he's like, "Oh, it's been a few years," and he's making like has like a couple people underneath him. And he seemed from the outside like he had a lot of stuff going on, but to me, $6,000 a month, I was making $3,000 a month, and I was like, "Whoa, I can double it." And at the time when I met him, I started going to these neighborhoods and these apartment buildings, looking at, "Oh, this is $1.5 grand a month. Man, this is a nice apartment. With $6,000 a month, I can live here no problem, babe. We'll have the whole world to ourselves." Small thinking then, but it seemed like big numbers. And that ended up being a total waste of time, because a lot of those companies, unless you're at the top of it, getting in way late in the game is very difficult. But what it did was open my eyes to being an entrepreneur and not just being another cog in the wheel. Because around that time that I met the guy, I started my job in downtown Seattle. So I live still the same city now. I moved back in this area, but it was about a 45-minute commute without traffic to get to Seattle. And so I would take a bus. I'd drive about 15 minutes at like 4:30 in the morning. I'd hop on a bus because I had a 6 a.m. shift. And then I'd get to work. I'd do the same thing in reverse. But I got excited. The first day I got hired, I drive to the bus stop. You see all these people. They're like in the subway, New York or whatever. Everyone's just going along like sardines in a can, right? I'm all excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm part of the gang, like we're going to go make some money in Seattle. And I liked that idea for the first few months until I got introduced and my eyes got opened up to what making money was really like. And I went from excited every morning to get to work to getting to the bus stop and going, this is very, very sad. Like very sad. These people have no intention of getting better. they've been here. There's young guys, there's old guys. They're all on the bus, all with a newspaper, all with their headphones in, just a cog in the wheel. And I started opening my mind because they would give you these DVDs and stuff that I'd like just rip them and put them on my phone and listen to them on the bus ride. And it was telling you that it was a mix of like manifestation and putting in hard work and all that. And I was like, man, you really can be whatever you want if you put your mind to it and you hustle really hard. And there is no cap to the income that you can have if you actually put in the work and you actually grind, and you actually make connections. And I was just thinking to myself, there was a big world out there. And so I started thinking about it. And then every Sunday, me and my wife would go to downtown Bellevue, which is like the really like nice area of the greater Seattle area. It's kind of like how you'd see downtown LA, and then you would see Beverly Hills, similar to that, like separate, but very nice. And I would go down there and we look at all these big houses and the skyscrapers. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, I can see us here one day. And I started thinking big, like very, very big. And then I met through a mutual friend of hers, my wife's. See, my wife started everything for me, basically. She had a really good connection, and her husband had a yellow Lamborghini Murcielago. He lived in a penthouse, and he was an internet marketer. And I was blown away. The guy was 2 years older than me, or a year older than me, and he was just crushing it in life. And I tried to get as close as I could to him on Instagram at first. I look at all his posts, and I was so inspired. He'd sit there with a book. People still take the same pictures these days, right? With the city in the background, you're sitting there, with the laptop out. That was before everyone now is a laptop, guru, right? And my cousin got married, one of my closest friends now. He got married in June of the same year. And he showed up with his yellow Lamborghini to the wedding. Everybody flocked to him. And I took like 30 seconds of his time. I walked up and I introduced myself. And I was like, hey, man, what do you do? And he said, oh, I'm an affiliate marketer and I sell like video game downloads or whatever. And I was like, whoa, this is insane. Because I'm a tech nerd. Like I grew up, I was a little chubby kid playing Call of Duty, eating popcorn and bacon. And just, that was me growing up, And so I always wanted to be in the computer world with something, which is why I went into the tech field. But he can sell products online and make money. So that blew my mind. And I ended up asking him, like, where can I learn more about it? And I don't know if this forum exists still, but it's called Stack That Money. It's like, sign up on there, and then we'll talk later. So I got so excited. I got home. I looked up the forum. It was like $50 a month, and I was thinking to myself, babe, can I afford this $50 a month to hop in this forum? And she's like, we'll make this work. And I was like, sweet, cool. And we decided from that moment on in June that we would move in with my mom in this small townhome that she ended up getting enough money to buy, where it was 3 bedrooms. It was 2 bedrooms technically, and one was an office. And my brother was in that room. I was in one of the bedrooms. My mom had the master. So she decided, my mom so graciously said, hey, I believe in you. Me and my brother are the only 2 at the time in our entire family that actually got a AA degree from college. So it goes to show you, it doesn't matter where you started, what you do with it, right? So we're the only ones in the family that actually accomplished that. So she goes, hey, you can stay here, start your business, get your feet underneath you guys, and then when you're ready to go, you can leave. So she moved into my old bedroom, and me and my wife were in the master. And we had the bedroom right here, and right next to it, there was this little gap where my desk went, and then there was the bathroom. So my wife always wanted to sleep on the right side of the bed, and she wanted me on the left. However, because of the computer where it was, I had to sleep there. So that way, when I'd come home from work at like 7 p.m., I'd work out, because I stayed consistent there, at least. I would roll over at 3 in the morning to wake up 2 hours later to get to work. So I'd work all night trying to learn. I'd fall over in the bed, then I'd wake up, and then I'd go to work and repeat. So I won that one, but in weird circumstances, So basically, from that point on, once we got married, I remember this hilarious situation. This is why I really wanted to make a lot of money. We were in Hawaii for a honeymoon. My mom got the trip, and her dad paid for the wedding. And we're on that trip, and we're sitting there in Cheesecake Factory one of the first nights. I look at my bank account and I go, babe, I think we're going to have to start splitting meals because this trip is adding up a lot. Like, we didn't pay for the hotel and whatever, but we had to pay for everything else when we got there. So it was such a sad experience to tell my wife, like, we need to actually think about what we're doing with money. So we were splitting it. I'd get a burger and fries, and she'd eat the fries, and I'd have the burger, and we'd share part of each. Like, crazy, right? To think about that. And then we went to a steakhouse one night. We got all dressed up. We sit down. We look at the menu, and I go, $50 for a steak? Are you kidding me? The guy got us water. We took a few sips. He went away, and we ran out. Like, we can't afford that. But now I can. Now I got no problem with it. But then, you can't forget it when you're young and you don't have much. And those things really, really impact you in a big way, right? And then from there, I started my internet marketing business. I got into e-commerce. That really picked up. And in June of 2016, I quit my job, finally. And my employer at the time, I bounced between a couple of different jobs, but everyone I left, my brother actually worked at Costco at the time, if I rewind a smidge. I worked that tech job, and my brother was telling me, hey, I get you $25 an hour working at corporate Costco, which is in their main office is here in Seattle. And it was $25 an hour. I was like, sweet. I signed into the job the same time I tried starting my affiliate marketing business. Within 2 months, I go from like really good employee to the manager pulling me to the side and going, hey, David, I don't know what happened. Like, your brother's a hard worker and all that, but seems like you've been falling off. Is everything okay? And I said, yeah, yes and no. I actually had my 2-week notice on my desk because I wanted to go back to my old Seattle job. Because back then I would have all that time to be on the bus. And then the job was so easy that I can focus on my business while making like steady income. So I left the more higher paying job, and the guy sat there baffled. He's like, what do you mean you're going to put in your 2-week notice? I was like, yeah, I'm starting a business, and I got a job, a higher paying job back at where I used to work, same role, just a higher pay to meet in the middle, and I want to start a business. And he laughed at me. He said, everyone tries to start a business, but they always fail. Don't be dumb. People come to Costco to get a steady income and stay here for life. Don't lose this opportunity because you're never going to have it again. And I was like, left. Handed him a 2-week notice, moved on. Then I went to work back in Seattle. Same thing. This time they said, when you come back to work with us, you must work with us for 1 year. I came back in September, and I put in my 2-week notice June. And I came into the office, I gathered all the leads, and I said, you're not going to like this, guys. But I've actually gotten really successful in my business. I'm making about $2-ish grand a day net. So I'm basically making my income in a couple of days online. Like, I don't need this anymore. I learned enough that even if I quit, me and my wife never moved out yet. And we didn't start blowing all of our money. So it made sense, right? Fully focus on something that can actually bring you more income. All of them sat there like, are you kidding me? We brought you back and you're going to leave. If you leave, we're never going to allow you back into our lives again. And I was like, I don't care. I know what I need to do in life, and that is pursue my dreams. And all 3 of them that were in there said the same thing as my previous boss. All doubters. All, you'll never be able to do it. Don't be dumb. Well, look at me now. Like, I'm doing just fine. I'm still married. I have a daughter now. I've been running the internet marketing business since 2016, well, end of 2015, officially in 2016. And now I have so many opportunities. Now I'm coaching people. Now I'm helping people become better and learn from my experiences where I failed. And that couldn't have all been done if I didn't take the risks that I did. Same with you, like, we all have to take risks in life. We can't just be like held down to a box like most people. Otherwise, you're stuck being like that when we all have the potential to get it. And I call my coaching group the Lions Tribe because, like lions, they wake up every day hungry. They don't stay full from a previous kill they had, throw it in the refrigerator because they don't got one in the safari, and try and live off of a past victory. They wake up every day hungry to tackle the gazelles of their life and be leaders. And that's what I embody in my own life, in being in my family, and also with the people I have in my coaching program currently. They're getting better every single day. They're being more disciplined. They're seeing their bodies change. Their minds get better. And in turn, that is what I believe is the calling of my life, is be able to help others get better. The internet marketing business is great, but it's almost like a little hustle and grind where you get paid, but there's not a big picture involved. And so now more in my life, I feel like that is my calling. That is where God is leading me. So that's my little story in a nutshell up to now.
Yeah.
There's a lot missing in the middle, but that's a good one.
Right, man. Yeah, and you said it, man. It all came down to your mindset, and it's rare that situation you had without the father. That type of stuff. I've seen it with a lot of my buddies, man. It can really mess them up. They lose their path, and they don't replace that father. So I love what your mother told you. You've got a father in heaven that's looking after you. Did you wind up, David, getting like along the way? Did you come across any good mentors? Obviously, I know you hired Wes as a coach.
Yeah.
But were there any men that stepped in the physical plane to guide you?
Yeah, none really as a father. So in a father realm, I had a couple of my uncles that to this day I love them so much. They were just that strong figure that I needed in my life. That they were a bit more of the harsh father figure, but that's what you need, right? You don't need these like quote unquote beta males trying to raise kids. You need men that have values, that want to see the family grow, succeed, and unfortunately that comes with some discipline. So we would be at a camping trip or whatever, and the uncles would correct me. I take it harsh, but you always look back, and as I grew older, I really appreciated that. And one of my first mentors was the guy in the yellow Lamborghini. It was funny because when we first met, he was high and mighty and, the top of his game, right? Everyone, no matter what car they drive, where they live, understand one important thing. If they got it quick, it does not mean that they were doing it for years and they can continue that success forward. Fortunately, he's not in this business anymore. I don't know where he is, but that's the separation. Like, the people you listen to, are they still doing it? How long have they been doing it for? And do they just look good on the surface, or are they genuine under? But he was my first inspiration and somewhat of a mentor. I went to him for a job and he rejected it, which was fine because he didn't have the money, when you figure that out later on, right? But he was a really good connection. So it's funny because he started me off in the affiliate marketing world. And then I went into an e-commerce. I had a drop shipping store. It was multi-seven figure. I blew that sucker up to the moon. And that's a whole different crazy story. Never get products from China and ensure that you have a good supplier, because I blew up an entire operation just by not vetting the process correctly. But because I had such high numbers there, I owned an Audi R8 that I envisioned. I moved to downtown in the same apartment that he lived in, and I had everything like there, right? I had the car. I got so many connections from that sucker. It was insane. But I had all that stuff I wanted, but I held off. I didn't take my first win. I waited until I got stable. But even after you feel like you're stable, you're going to always have things that pop up, like blowing up my entire e-com business by having the wrong supplier. But he was one mentor. He ended up coming back and wanting to learn what I did. And then we exchanged information. I helped him out with his e-commerce stuff. Then he helped me out with the affiliate marketing stuff, which is what I do primarily now. Is I do sell like CBD products, diet products, all of that. And like lead generation on that side of the business, totally separate. It's not something that I sell to people. It's just a money flow thing, right? I just tell people if they want to get into that business, but not actually buy those products. Those are just like, they always change. But I had a mentor. His name is Chase Hero, and his partner, Zach Folkman. They're actually really good friends now with Wes, but I, in 2018 and 19, signed up for their one-year program called the Watchers. And it was this big mastermind. It was the first one I paid a lot of money for. I've been to like random like weekend events, or, you'd go and they just pitch you the whole time, but you would just go there to network, right? But these guys, it was once a month. You'd fly down to LA. You would network with them. They teach you how to get a better sales funnel, a better network of like high-end individuals, invest better. They were big into crypto at the time when it was really, really cheap, and I learned a lot from them. They showed me all the things that were possible. I flew to so many places. I went to Puerto Rico multiple times, and I was this close to buying something down there and moving there full time. Thank God I didn't. But I went to like the Virgin Islands. I went to all these cool places. My life exploded. I was thinking to myself, where was I in 2015? I was still living in my mom's house, and now I'm living downtown. I went from like one small apartment to this like really high apartment, like insane. I was paying like 4.5 G's a month for parking and the apartment itself and all that stuff. A lot of money. And it was thinking to myself, I was stressing out about a $1,500 a month apartment and making $6K a month to now I'm blowing basically $6K a month in living expenses, and my life is completely different. And they opened my eyes up, and because of that network and that mentor, me and him are still friends to this day. As a matter of fact, next month when I go to Miami, I'm going to be in Florida for a month to go house shopping in Sarasota, but I'm going to go to Miami to link up with him because it's been a while. And to this day, I don't pay him for anything, obviously, because it was a 1-year program, but anything I ever ask of him, need of him, he's always there. He's always there to serve me. He's like the best guy. And he just crushes it in life. Like, he has so many connections. He's like best friends now with like the Paul brothers and stuff. And now, of course, Wes Watson. And everything just comes full circle like that, doesn't it? You know, I was in this guy's mentorship program, and years later, now Wes unlocks my coaching side of things because I really want to do something special with my life. And then a few months ago, they met in Miami. They're taking videos and pictures together. And I was like, my two mentors that have made the biggest impact in my life are now friends. How crazy is that, right? And I saw Wes the first time on Andy Frisella's podcast and Brad Lee's podcast. And Andy Frisella was the one that blew my mind away. I did 75 hard in 2021 for the first time because of him. And that was my mental toughness just shift, where no one has an excuse anymore. There is nothing someone can tell me that would justify why they're failing in life. Like, if you're putting in work and you're actually fully focused on what you're doing, there's no way that you won't get results. It's impossible. If you go to sleep every night with your pillow on your head and you understand that you did everything you possibly could, over time it'll compound, and that's why your following is so gigantic, because you are true to yourself and that your brand is solid. So it's just a matter of time. But then there's people, like even in my instance, right, with trying to like post random stuff, it's like I look back, I get jaded, and I think to myself, so a lot of times like, well, why don't I see certain things? But then I realize like, hey, I'm not actually fully diving in with my whole heart, and I'm not going to sleep every single night with the right intention sometimes. So life is always going to be a battle between internally, right? We always get jaded, but it's always, can we step back, reassess from an aerial standpoint and go, well, what's the real mission here? What are you trying to do? Who are you trying to help? And where is your vision in the future? And that's where I push forward. So those, in a big nutshell, is the mentor question. Is those two were my main guys, and I still talk to them. Obviously, Wes all the time, but also my previous mentor as well. What about you?
Yeah, man. I've been blessed with a lot of good mentors. I had a great father. Growing up, I try to emulate what he did for. I have 3 brothers, so he was always coaching us and all that. And then through the gyms, I got 2 gyms out here.
Yeah.
And I've been really fortunate to meet some really good mentors. One guy, Louis, has been, we've become like family. I was training his son, and he started training, but he's always, we share ideas back and forth, man. But I've another coach I have, this guy, Vince. I've had Vince since 2012. I hired him, believe it or not. And he's still coaching me just because he's got the growth mindset. He's always learning. He's always, got his own coaches. So a lot of coaches, right, you can outgrow over time, and that's okay. That happens. But I've always believed, like, I have mentors, and then I've also sought out coaches. Since 2008, I've had people coaching me. Like, it's just nonstop, always have somebody coaching me, and Vince has been there kind of throughout the whole thing. I've had a few fitness guys coach me, when I was competing and all that, and learned a lot of good stuff from them, man. But it's, I think we can learn from anybody, man. I really do, man. That's the power of like the group calls and just kind of seeing, you know, catching the ego, right? When the ego says, "Oh man, that guy's doing great," and you catch your ego, or I do sometimes. I'm very mindful of it now, where the ego wants to hate on it all of a sudden. So what if you have that mindset and that energy? You're never going to be successful. God has abundance, right? Like one of the dudes in the group told me about this book. You're talking about it's really good, man, and it's all biblical, but working with the law.
Mm.
But just really talking about the abundance, man, the abundance that's everywhere, and if we give freely, right, and it's Louis Simmons, are you familiar with West Side Barbell? Did you ever study any of that?
I think I've seen you post about it before, but not super familiar now.
Yeah, so Louis, man, he was like West Side. I'm not sure if it probably still is the strongest gym in the world. They had a documentary a couple of years ago on Netflix. Louis passed away last year. So 3 of my 5 fitness mentors have passed within the past couple of years. Just kind of Louis, it was kind of just quick, right? Whatever. But Louis, I remember, so Louis is this world-renowned strength coach. And right after we got married, 2011, I just opened the first gym. And I called him. I said, I would just call these guys, dude. Some of them wouldn't give me the time of day. I would offer to pay some of these guys, whatever. I would always offer to pay him, actually. But Louis, I left a message, and he kept calling me until he got back in touch with me. And I remember it just impressed me so much. I'm like, this guy doesn't know me from anybody, man. And he just kept calling, and then he would spend an hour on the phone with me. And fortunately, I was able to talk with Louis 6 or 7 times on the phone like that, just hour-long conversations, picking his brain about strength training. And, it always just impressed me, man. So I always remember that. I'm like, you know what? That's who I want to be, like that guy. When people reach out to me and it's like, I don't care who it is, man. I'm like, I'm going to get – now you'll get people that try to take advantage, obviously, right, and all that. But it's like if somebody's looking to come up and they're going to put in the work, I'll give them everything I got, man, to help them,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, too, is you and I come from the same idea with that. And, we talked a little bit about like how your following blew up so quick.
Yeah.
As soon as it happened, I was like, that one split second in my brain went jealousy.
Yeah.
And then within another second, I go, that's the old David trying to come out. That's the man I killed. You never talk and think like that to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
Because what separates you and I from each other? There is none. It's just we're on different timetables. We have different followings, different parts of our life that will affect different people.
Yeah.
So as soon as I thought that, I snapped out and I just go, nope, I'm going to reach out and see how you did it. Like, was it authentic? Clearly it was, right? Because if it wasn't, you wouldn't consistently, you know what I mean? Like it wouldn't have continued to snowball the way it is.
Yeah.
And so, because I've known enough people where I see them jump. It's different in the self-development in the coaching world versus, the influencer world. Because up until the last year, I always just saw these random kids just create an Instagram account. And then all of a sudden they have 100,000 followers. And you look at their followers and it's all fake.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm used to seeing that stuff. And then to see you and to see Brad just not you can see it, right? You look at the reel and you're like, whoa. And then you see the interaction, you see all that. And then because we're on private mastermind calls, you hear the authentic, hey, I was going through this, then this happened. Manifestation actually works. I believed it. I prayed about it. God ordained it. That's why I know that this is my calling as well as yours. Because, my wife asked me, multiple people have always asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Mm-hmm. And in my affiliate marketing business, they say it and I go, I don't know. I just don't, because that's not an actual business. Right? It's like a hustle and a grind. I have a team that kind of runs things behind me and I take a top level look, but it's not a sellable business. It's not, neither is coaching, but coaching is different because you are providing a real service and you're getting real referrals. You don't get that in my current line of work, right? I do in the coaching business, which is insane because you see change, you see that. So when I first started the program, I started seeing visions about where I would be in life. And I usually after the gym, I'll hit the sauna for 10 minutes and I'll just sit there. That's my visualization. Or it's in the morning or after the gym when my brain frequency is at its highest, and I went, it's actually on Easter. So I've had multiple, confirmations, but I was just feeling really, really down. I actually was taking Adderall for years, just off and on. Uh-huh. And it really started messing with my brain a lot this year, really bad, to the point where I started becoming somewhat dependent on it. and then very like aggressive in nature. So it kind of caused a lot of tension in the household. I thought I needed it because I was trying to, start the coaching stuff and then reach out to people. And I was like, I need extra energy and I'd have less sleep. So, your brain can play tricks on you in that way too. It convinces you that things that are bad for you are good for you. But I watched a video from this guy called King Keto, Brandon Carter. And one of his like videos he posted, someone asked a Q&A and they said about getting more energy. And he's like, what do you recommend? Modafinil, Adderall, whatever. And he's like, you can take all those, but understand they're horrible for your health long term. That's one. But then for two, a lot of irritability, like you're fake getting success. So as soon as you're off it, like you're done. So I recommend optimize your sleep, optimize your diet, hydrate properly, get your testosterone checked, and fix it. So for me, I don't take anything. I just take general supplements. Like I take a lot more magnesium now. I take ashwagandha. I take all of these different herbs and supplements. And the biggest lever for me was like the sleep and optimizing that. But when it came down to the subject of, hey, it'll take you about 2-ish weeks to fully get off of like Adderall and stuff like that. You will have a withdrawal symptom. And I thought to myself, maybe this is a sign to just stop it all because I'll have great work for 2 hours and I just fall off and be like irritated and all that. Like this isn't the way it worked years ago when I first started taking the stuff, right? It just melted my brain in that way. And it sucked because I wouldn't feel genuine in any aspect. And this all happened before Easter. So like Easter was on a Sunday, and then on a Friday was the last day. I was like, I'm done. I guess Good Friday ended up being good, right? But I woke up Saturday and I felt the biggest like devil attack and anxiety filled morning of my entire life. I woke up and I felt like the devil was whispering in my ear, like in the Outwitting the Devil book.
Yeah.
Have you read it? Yeah. So I think about that stuff a lot. And it was like an attack on me. It was, hey, your affiliate marketing business is going to crash. Like you're not making any income. Just everything that you can possibly have doubting you, like your wife is going to leave you. I was like, what is this? And throughout the day, I was like, stay strong, stay strong, stay strong. My wife was telling me we have a really good church here, and they had a really big Easter service. And then they're going to have a night service where this big evangelist called Benny Hinn was going to be there. And we're like, okay, we'll go to both. Well, maybe we'll get prayer, get a miracle because I'm feeling so messed up right now. Like I need something. So we go to the first service. So that Saturday was rough. Then Sunday I woke up. Even worse morning I had. And I felt like it was a direct attack of like, but it made me really happy at the same time. Because when the enemy attacks you, that means that he's scared of what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. So after about 30 minutes of that stressful morning attack, I was like, okay, you know what? Went to church, Easter service was great. Then I went to the night service, and at the end there was a big altar call to come down and get prayer. So I'm walking down, and I thought it was like my wife, because I really didn't want to be there that night. I was like, I just want to go home. I want to like send some DMs. I want to get to work and work on my other business, and just I don't want to be here. And my wife was like, we have to go. So my wife, being the great woman she is, because she's gotten us to this point, she's the rock of the family effectively. I go down there, we start walking down, and I thought this is a prayer for the family. So I'm like, wife, you just handle it. Like, tell the pastor, and I'll just sit here and just, like, take the prayer, whatever. And I'm walking down, and this random guy stops me, and he goes, hey, I don't know who you are, but God wanted me to tell you that where you're going in life is exactly where you need to be. And you're going to touch millions of people in your life, and you're doing a great job already. And I've been... goosebumps right now because it's different when you see something happen in front of you. Like, okay, cool. I moved downtown. I got this exotic car. Like I manifested it, right? It's like that whole thing. But to someone to stop you and tell you something that you really needed to hear from a random person that was a vessel for use, that's crazy. And then I go to the front, and then the main pastor of the church, he's like praying for a bunch of people. He was there like till midnight, like praying for every last person. This guy's amazing, man of God. Well, there's these two girls in front of me and this other guy, and I'm right behind. And my wife says, this prayer is for you. We're going to stand back here. And then I was just like, oh man, this has to be for me. Like, fine. Because I felt so good from the last guy. I was like, okay, let me just think about like if the pastor asks me like what do I want prayer for? Business, really have to ask again for that. Like, whatever. So I'm thinking that. And then he silently goes in front of me. He puts his hand on my forehead and then breathes on me. And then he whispers prayers to me. I don't really hear it because there's all kinds of stuff going on around me. But then this other backup pastor at the end puts his hand on my back. And then after he's done praying for me, which I went from like holding my fists and just kind of like reserved to like open hands and sobbing uncontrollably. It's an insane experience. And then this guy puts his hand on, and I'm sobbing uncontrollably, right? He puts his hand on my shoulder, starts praying to me. And he says, your grandpa, one of the things at the very end, says, your grandpa is extremely proud of you, and you are going to be the successful one in your family to change millions of lives. And I went from sobbing and crying to just still. I have the video on my phone. At some point, I'm going to post about it. I posted about the entire experience of the pastors holding my head. My wife, took the picture. But there's that little video snippet. It's hard to hear the audio, so I haven't posted it yet. But to hear that was similar, but to say my grandpa is proud of me. I was like, even if you don't believe in God, like, what are the odds of all things that you can possibly say? Two guys that don't know me at all would say something along the same lines. One guy was just a random, and then he was telling me things for my family. And I was like, this is insane. So in my head, I'm like, no matter what happens, I will always be here to help others become the best versions of themselves. You know, like one big thing that I had, my one big vice. I didn't have an alcohol problem. I didn't really have a drug problem. You know, I never did anything harder. I had a few puffs of marijuana in my life, and that's it. And then that little Adderall thing, which I don't even touch because I never go into that feeling ever again. Not worth it. And I feel great now, right? But man, I just lost my train of thought. That's how crazy that Adderall was. That story always gets me. So my vice, that's the one. A lot of people, these men, have the issue of porn, right?
Oh, yeah.
One of the biggest things. And so since I was like 11 years old, got introduced to it, I've been hooked. And then the more the years go by, the easier it is to access it, right?
Yeah.
Even being married, it's like you don't want to do it, but it's so easily accessible, you end up looking at it. And even right before I met Wes, like, he solidified it in me. But it's been about a year now, and I haven't looked once.
Right, dude. Right.
And the thing is, like, I tried everything. I tried, you know, tell a friend about it, go to the pastor about it. My wife didn't know about any of this until December. And I told her, I was like, I don't want to tell you this about this dark past I had. Every woman doesn't want to believe that her husband has some dark stuff going on, right? No one does. It can be that, or it can be like that you're secretly taking drugs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's always something. And I was like, you know, until I I truly understand that I'm over this, then I told her. And I was like, the reason why I'm telling you this specifically is because you're going to be hearing this story a lot now that I'm going to be coaching, now I'm going to be a brand.
Yeah. You're
going to hear this and understand. I don't want to be taken like aside on a podcast that I tell the story. But I tell the story because I'm truly free. I tell the story because you can see outward success in business, but it doesn't matter. It's the internal man that's changed. There's a picture of Perseus from Greek mythology holding the head of Medusa. And I've heard this in many different podcasts over time. You know, you never know who said the thing first time, but I look at this picture right here.
Yeah.
Right? Perseus holding the head of Medusa. I imagine that's me holding the old version of myself. My old vices, my old habits, my old thoughts, everything is there. So whenever I'm at the gym, I'm crushing it. Something in my head tells me, put the weight down, too heavy. I'm like, nope, holding the head, and I'm going to pursue forward. And even when it came to the issue of porn, Wes solidified it by saying basically a similar story of just stop thinking about it, destroy the old you, and become the new version of yourself. Until you can just stop and help others be better and focus on them, the only time you actually start falling and failing into these things is when you get bored, is when no one's around. Then all of these thoughts come into your head. But now I can actually be alone with myself. Yeah. And I don't have any of that. Like, the devil will try and bring you down. The enemy will try to bring you down into any field that he can. Whether it be hitting snooze in the morning, whether it be walking by, you're strictly tracking your diet and your macros, and then there's a cookie, and it goes, it's just one cookie. It's not just one cookie. That is a vacuum that'll pull you back into the old you. As dumb as that sounds, The snooze button is an L. The cookie is an L. The porn is an L. Putting the weight down before you know you're supposed to finish that set is an L. Making an excuse as to why you don't want to hit the gym or get your body right, everything is an L. And every time, it's a slippery slope. One slip up, and it starts a cascade downwards if you don't catch yourself. How many people, like I'm sure because you got extremely ripped and you still are jacked right now, but when you diet really, really hard, you've done this, right? Where you grab a cookie and it's like, oh no.
Oh yeah.
And you want to grab 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Even when I was competing, even with extreme discipline, it would happen.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's it, man.
And so now I look at that type of stuff. I laugh. Like, I don't look at women anymore, like in the gym, nothing. Like, hand to God, I don't care. I don't care. And it's so freeing to say that, right? Because in most situations, if I see a woman pass by, I'll look at the human body walking by to see who that is. But I don't look at that person and look at their body parts first or anything. I just look, there's a human walking by. And then there's always those moments I'm at the gym and all of a sudden there's a girl walks by and like this part of me goes, look, and I go, nah, it's a challenge and I love to beat this type of stuff now. Like, I've won. There is no way I'm going to backslide or do any of that crap anymore. So it's freeing to me because it's all a challenge and I love the challenge. Because when I tell people online, let's say, I am a new man, I am an elite individual, and I want to help you do the same, it means I will never go back to the crap that got me there in the first place and made me a lesser man. So when I confidently tell somebody, I'm going to help you become elite because I did all this in my past, but I don't do it anymore. I'm the same person on camera as off camera because I have nothing to hide. I don't. I have a family now. Like, just because I had a daughter didn't mean I stopped my vices. Their vices, their problems, their sins, their issues, they hurt you and your family, whether they know it or not. But being able to free yourself completely from that is actually where the success comes in your life. I always tell people, it doesn't have to be monetary. You don't have to be rich to be successful in life. If you can raise your family, if you can be present for your family, if you can every day progress forward, make the right choices with your diet, make the right choices with your time. A grown man with kids playing video games, watching Netflix is not ideal in the slightest. It's embarrassing. So I tell guys that, I'm like, you don't have to have the extreme vice that I did because most of them are lying to me anyways, right? You see them what they like on Instagram. It's like, this was posted an hour ago and it's, like you're on one of those pages. You're like, why did my friend like this? But he said he doesn't like this. Yeah, sorry, buddy. Don't have to be transparent, but I am. I know you are. So it's like, once you're free and you're authentic, that's where true freedom comes from.
That's it, bro. That's it, man. Listen, we're going to have to do a part 2 for sure, man. I just got to run to the gym and train 2 people. This was all.
I know how it is, brother.
This was great, dude. I got a lot of notes. Tell people, David, where they can follow you. What's the best way to get in touch with you and learn more about your story and your inspiration?
Appreciate it, Kyle. So I'm primarily on Instagram. It handles at David Fishchuk. It's DavidFishchuk. Same on YouTube. I'm not crazy with huge content there, but it all starts in Instagram and it kind of ports over.
Okay.
So Snapchat, same thing. Facebook, same thing. Twitter, same thing. It's all that same across the board. Shoot me a DM. I'd love to help dig into your problems and issues. Anything you got going on. Nothing surprises me anymore. I want to help you become the better version of yourself, which starts with the right meals, which starts with the right fitness program, and then digging in and pulling out the old you and creating a new version of yourself to make your life and others around you better.
Right on, brother. That's it, man. You're going to change the world, man. Yeah.
You as well, Kyle. Appreciate you again, brother, for all your time and leading the way for me. Thank you so much.
You got it, bro. I will hit you in the DM like tonight or tomorrow, get some stuff, and then we'll keep it rolling. We'll get a part 2 for this summer, okay?
We have to. Go crush that workout, brother.
All right, bro. I'll catch you later.
See ya.